The chair recognizes the member for Pineridge.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy. And thank you, colleagues, for permitting me this opportunity to speak, Mr. Deputy.
1 second.
An essay on criticism by Alexander Pope. I wish to extract from his writing, but before I conclude with his famous quote, let me first quantify his explanation. All people commit sin and make mistakes. God forgives them, and people are acting in a godlike divine way when they follow pursuit and forgive others. It is from this provocating rationale and thought that we have this famous quote by Alexander Pope: "To err is human, to forgive is divine." Mr. Deputy, once again I thank Almighty God for the privilege to pontificate, better yet, Mother, speak to, on behalf of the good and gracious people of Pineridge. Mr. Deputy, let me take this opportunity on a day where love is emphasized and proliferated nationally and globally to express a happy Valentine to the people of Pineridge and by extension the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. Mr. Deputy, I would be remiss if I did not take this opportunity to wish my lovely wife Tracy Monique, the love of my life, a very happy Valentine. We're committed to each other, and after so many years, we love being in the presence of each other. Mr. Deputy, I'm a part of that statistic that helped to make up the relationship reality in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. Fortunate or unfortunately, depending on how you look at it, where the marriage rate is almost equal to the divorce rate. There are just as many people in this country that are divorced as also married. It's unfortunate. Sometimes people marry too early, feel pressured to do so, especially if you're in the church. Or perhaps after marriage they recognize that they're not compatible and they have less in common. They were simply in lust and not in love. And then you have a lot of people who are married by paper and ring, but behind closed doors they live divorced lives. Mr. Deputy, I said this to encourage those out there who are divorced and perhaps are considering remarriage to recognize that there is hope in finding the person that makes you happy. Mr. Deputy, despite me being a divorcee and remarried, Tracy Monique, whom I have a son with, makes me happy, and the evidence is seen in my demeanor and comfort in my daily life. Mr. Deputy, I represent the Pineridge constituency, a demographic grouping of our Bahamian society, the lower, middle, and upper middle class of our country. Therefore, knowing that they are not the upper echelons of our society, I avoid speaking to them by way of parable and diplomacy. My people whom I represent can be found in the cross-section of the majority of constituencies represented in this place. Mr. Deputy, I have a responsibility to speak to my constituents, not at them, not below them, not above them, but to them, so that by the time as I'm through speaking in and out of this place, there's no ambiguity or question about what I may or may not have said. Mr. Deputy, this has not been the best 2 weeks in and out of this place, and it is unpropitious that history will recall when it's said and done. This was not the best 2 weeks, and I'm referring to all of us. It's not been the best 2 weeks for the Speaker, the members of the governing party, and the opposition. People out there don't like what they've been seeing and hearing in here. Mr. Deputy, my profession and vocation was birthed from evangelism. An evangelist from the context of the church is often referred to as the messenger. Sir, I've always been operating in this place as the people's messenger, and I'm often ostracized for bringing the message because perhaps it's because of who the messenger is. It's high time that we stop trying to assassinate the messenger and start listening to the message from the people who sent us here in the first place. Mr. Deputy, we're here debating the occurrence of the last 2 weeks. But, sir, this really isn't about the last 2 weeks. This has more to do with the last 25 years. The Bahamian people have become fatigued and or tired of politicians and the way business have been conducted in and out of this place in the name of the people. When this high drama took place on the 7th of February 2018, I was not in the precinct. I did not attend, but I watched attentively, and I too, like many Bahamians, became frustrated by my observations. How can an establishment that is to be so nationally high bring us to an all-time low? How does a place with supposedly honorable men and women display such dishonorable conduct? Mr. Deputy, the message the people are conveying is that they've seen this movie before. The cast might presently be different, but the plot, scenery, and performance are very vivid and familiar. Mr. Deputy, the people asked me to share some of the scenes from the last performance by another cast. They reminded me of how my leader, who was once leader of the opposition, and how he had been named, and how members then sought to block the police from getting to him. They reminded me of another time when the entire opposition walked out of the House, and they were not suspended by the then Speaker, and one of his members stayed behind in the person of Edison Key. They reminded me of how my present leader, who was once leader of the opposition, was always being bombarded, berated, and then the government, and that then government, as he was leader, they would always ask this question, right from this place: who's the leader? The man or the woman? Does it sound familiar? They reminded me how the then government would stick their chests out, bang on the desk, laugh at the opposition, and would always remind them, we have the numbers. Mr. Deputy, the Bahamian people were watching this movie from 2012 to 2017. It's now 2018, and the script is familiar. This is why the people are saying, same movie, different cast. Mr. Deputy, all of us in this honorable place know how that movie ended. That in and of itself should cause us, this government, to write an entirely different script. Let me ask another question. Just to add to this movie. What are they saying about the opposition now that they didn't say about us 4.5 years ago? Things that make you go, And who's the government? The people of the Bahamas wish for us to elevate our speech and behavior in this place. They want maturity and consciousness from their representatives. A message from the people of Pineridge, by extension Grand Bahama and the Bahamas. The people are mad with the present opposition. That's why they are presently in opposition. Mr. Deputy.
Point. Bambuchang.
Mr. Deputy Chair, we are at the 1 o'clock hour, and I'd like to move a motion that we continue beyond 1 to give the member an opportunity to finish his contribution.
It's been moved and seconded that the business of this House continue beyond 1 o'clock. As many members are in favor, remain seated. Those opposing will rise. It's carried. The business of the House will carry on beyond 1 o'clock.
Thank you, Mr. Government Leader. Thank you, House members. And I think I need to repeat that. Mr. Deputy, the message from the people of Pineridge, by extension Grand Bahama, the Bahamas, the people are mad with the present opposition. That's why they are presently in opposition. Mr. Deputy, while they are mad with the present opposition, resulting in them being where they are, the people of the Bahamas, supporters included, of our government, are highly disappointed in our performance or the lack thereof. Mr. Deputy, the revelation about this whole situation is they are no longer, please do not take my words out of context. The revelation about this whole situation is they are no longer as mad with the opposition as they are highly disappointed in us as a government. So you know what I'm saying? They're mad with them, but they're not as mad. And they're still waiting on us. Mr. Deputy, before my colleagues chew me to pieces for giving the message that is being permeated out there, beating me up for the truth, privately and publicly, does not change the perception or reality of what I'm saying.
Member for Pineridge, speaking to the chair.
Yes, sir, that's why I'm addressing you.
Yes. To the chair.
You see, Mr. Deputy, I just have a habit. I'm a preacher. I got to look around.
Speak to the chair.
You see, Mr. Deputy, the former Prime Minister, Hubert A. Ingram, used to say from this place, make laws you can live with when you are no longer in this place. Mr. Deputy, for me, my Christianity does not stop at the bar when I bow to the chair. My Christianity is a lifestyle. When I am no longer in this place, I want to be able to preach in any island and in any pulpit in this country, if I'm so moved to do so. So I must maintain my credibility and spiritual integrity while in this place. Too many come to this place believing life begins and ends in this place, and probably for some it does. Well, let me remind you, if you don't believe me, just in case you may have forgotten, which I don't think you have, the Bahamian people put us in, and the Bahamian people are the ones who will take us out. Mr. Deputy, through you, sir, let me take a moment to encourage my colleague from MyCal and the fellow pulpitarian. The member made a comment that offended many in this country. Yet before the sun went down, the member took an introspective view of the statement and deemed it necessary to apologize to the Bahamian people. I can only pray that they would graciously forgive the member, as the member was gracious in admitting no ill was meant towards the women and the people of our society. The member was magnanimous for doing so and ought to be commended and not castigated for the regret. Mr. Deputy, the Speaker has the arduous task of maintaining law and order in this chamber. Every member in this place look to the Speaker for protection while in this place. Mr. Speaker is expected to be impartial despite his partisan politics. Like most of us, the Speaker is a product of on-the-job training. Notwithstanding, the Speaker is the highest authority in this august body. Therefore, he's held to a higher standard. This is why I couldn't be Speaker or Deputy. I'm too much of a fighter for that. I'd rather be in the fight for the people rather than parting the fight for the people. It is what it is. Mr. Deputy, in this place we all have responsibility to respect the chair. Moreover, when the chair feels disrespected, the chair must maintain a certain decorum. It's not always easy doing so, especially when you're dealing with different personalities, ideologies, and know-it-alls. Mr. Deputy, while the opposition is small in number, we must not give the appearance as if we are bullying them because of their size. Let me hasten to say I'm not saying that we are, but we do not want the perception being perceived. Mr. Deputy, the opposition also has a responsibility to respect the rules and the chair. They too, that is the opposition, must recognize the position they hold today is the result of their immediate past performance. They would not want their supporters and Joe Public to believe that they are steeped in arrogance. Therefore, they can come into this place and behave in a manner they choose to without submitting themselves to the rules of this House. Mr. Deputy, as I said earlier, this has not been the best 2 weeks for the House and its members. Those opposite have brought a vote of no confidence against the Speaker today. It is unfortunate. We all got some mud on us in this last 2 weeks, and I, of course, especially today. Yet 2 wrongs never make it right. There needs to be today a spirit of reconciliation and forgiveness for things said on both sides. This is what the Bahamas really wants to see today on this Love Day. Mr. Deputy, the Bahamian people did not send us here for this, or to act in a manner in which we have been acting. The public expects more from us and of us. They want more of the people's business done in this Parliament. Might I add, they want legislation coming out of this place that will improve their welfare, well-being, safety, environment, and regional jurisdiction. Mr. Deputy, through you, sir, members of the opposition, I understand what you're going, I understand what you're doing, and you have every parliamentary right to do so. I am sorry we had to come to this juncture. On behalf of the people of Pineridge, we are sorry for any ill will and offense you may have felt during these past 2 weeks, personal or otherwise. Pineridge also conveys the same sentiment to the Speaker of this honorable chamber, who may have felt provoked. Pineridge also sympathizes with persons who outside this place felt violated or attacked during these course of actions. Nevertheless, Pineridge feels that the end does not justify the means. We, Pineridge, are not prepared to advance the opposition motion vote of no confidence in the Speaker at this time. Pineridge would hope that this would be a learning experience where we all respect each other's office and the office we all hold. Mr. Deputy, may this place once again be a beacon of light for Bahamians everywhere to emulate. To err is human. To forgive is divine. May God bless this house and all that serve therein. God bless the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. Much obliged, Mr. Deputy.